Hello all, thanks for taking the time to listen to our topic, lowering the risk of hazardous coating projects. Today we have Fred Salome from CDI Consultants and I'm Mark Woodford from Blast One Sydney. Lead in its form of various oxides has been used as a key ingredient in industrial paint primers for more than 100 years due to its excellent ability to protect steel from corrosion. The widespread use of lead paints continued until the early 1980s, when concerns about lead-based paint toxicity and the advent of less toxic protective coating systems significantly reduced their usage. Lead in any form is toxic to humans when ingested and inhaled. In many cases, the most cost-effective method of surface preparation for maintenance painting can involve the partial or complete removal of existing coatings by mechanical means, which pulverise the paint into small particles. These can be readily inhaled or ingested. Repeated inhalation or ingestion has a cumulative effect known as plumbism. According to the World Health Organization, lead is a cumulative toxicant that affects multiple body systems, and it's particularly harmful to young children. Lead in the body is distributed to the brain, liver, kidney and bones. Where it accumulates over time, the human exposure is usually assessed through the measurement of lead in blood. Lead in bone is released into blood during pregnancy and becomes a source of exposure to the developing fetus. There is no level of exposure to lead that is known to be without harmful effects. Lead exposure is preventable. What could you say, Fred?
Thanks, Mark. Yes, because lead was used so much in paint over the last century, and because so much of that lead paint still remains on surfaces, paint actually is still one of the major sources of lead exposure for humans, especially children. So when painters or contractors are asked to treat or otherwise remove lead paint, there's a great concern about possible contamination of the breach, the house, the building, and the surrounding land. So naturally, the community expects all such work to be carried out carefully, in a professional manner, and without residual risks. And over the last few decades, the paint industry has actually made significant steps towards meeting these expectations.
The long-term health effects are increasing concern, Fred. I noticed the International Agency for Research on Cancer upgrading from a possible human carcinogen to a Group 1 probable. Tell us your concerns about this.
Yes. Lead has always been considered as a chronic toxicant, one that builds up in the body over time, and health problems often occur later in life. But some aspects of lead poisoning do impact on younger people, younger adults. So we now not only have this association of lead with risk of lung cancer, it's also known as a reproductive carcinogen with possible increased risk of birth defects, and that should be of real concern to younger adults. It's one of these things, as we learn more about lead, its health effects, it's becoming better understood, we're going to have ever increasing tighter regulations.
How do we take responsibility to improve long-term safety to our workforce? On the screen you'll see an example of a SWMS statement and a guide to working with lead in the construction industry. There's the AS 4361.1, that's the applicable Australian standard, which in essence guides the industry on this subject. How can we do better for our workforce, Fred?
Yes, well, all these measurements, these documents are important in managing sites, and regulations have to be followed. Lead is actually one of the specific hazards covered in the Safe Work Australia Model Workplace Health and Safety Regulations, which are in force in most Australian states. They have certain thresholds for blood lead levels, and these regulations are being upgraded at the moment. In fact, they will come into force in most places from the 1st of July 2021.
Sure.
We have the blood lead charts on the screen now. So this first chart here shows the situation as it is at present, with an upper threshold for removal from lead tasks of 50 microgram per deciliter, and there's also lower down the definition of a lead task based around a blood lead level of 30 microgram per deciliter. These are for most workers. There are different figures for women who are able to have children. The next chart that you're seeing now is how things will be after 1st of July 2021, at which stage the removal limit is being lowered from 50 down to 30 microgram per deciliter, and the definition of a lead risk job is being lowered to 20 microgram per deciliter. And again, lower figures will apply for women who are able to have children. So the main emphasis for workplace safety is on monitoring airborne lead and preventing inhalation, which of course relies heavily on use of respirators.
Sure.
But there's also a need to avoid exposure from ingestion of lead, which can occur in a workplace from maybe contaminated food, contaminated lunchrooms, hand-to-mouth activities, especially smoking, and even people taking dust off-site into their car or home from unlaundered work clothes. So we really do need a two-pronged approach, focusing on personal hygiene, hand washing and stuff, as well as formal respiratory protection and the management plans and such.
Yeah, sure. The other aspect to these projects is the high cost of waste disposal, which adds to the overall lifetime asset maintenance cost. A lot of waste disposal companies find the waste a nuisance due to its handling procedures. We're looking at a series of innovations to support asset owners to lower overall project cost. What's the 5-year plan for industry? Any comments, Fred?
Look, waste abrasive is a difficult material for a waste company to handle because of its density and it blocks things and stuff. You need to make it as easy for them as possible. Now, in New South Wales and some other states, lead paint waste is pre-classified as hazardous, so unless it comes out of domestic situations, which means that the waste is hazardous regardless of any testing you do. So they have to treat it as such. So it's very important that contractors submitting waste don't make it harder for the company by mixing it with other wastes, with non-hazardous waste, with general waste, with liquids, with wet stuff. Keep it what it is, minimize the amount there, and that will make it easier for the waste company to focus on what they're doing. But over the longer term, I think we need to look at either waste reduction strategies or other ways of treating and immobilizing lead waste. To do that, I think the industry needs to engage with the EPA, develop a common path forward, and especially look at ways we can immobilize lead waste and get exemptions under that.
That's excellent, Fred. As always, we're keen to help hear how we can solve industry challenges and look forward to hearing from you about your current concerns in the question and answer panel. Any closing comments?
Yeah. Now, look, well, in Australia to date, the major developments in lead paint management have all been brought about by industry engagement with government, such as the joint development of the hazardous paint standards and the setting up of the PCCP program. So it seems clear to me that we need to do a similar approach, get together with government to try and resolve the issues around waste from hazardous paint management. As a major supplier of materials to the industry, I think that Blast One could actually play a major role in helping to bring the two sides together and starting discussions along those lines.
That's excellent. Thanks for your time, Fred, and thanks for
You're welcome.
joining us today. Have a great day, and we look forward to hearing your questions shortly. Thank you.